But what better person to have on the line with us? Love having this guy on. So much respect for him. He is a war hero. He is also a former Democratic presidential candidate. And, of course, Massachusetts Congressman Seth Moulton joining us right now on the line. Seth, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing all right. So much to get to you in such a short period of time here. So let me start with this before we get to this issue with Russia and the troops. Just let's talk about masks for a second and what's going on in this country with coronavirus. We just had a guy on, Seth, last segment, who's holding an anti-mask rally in Las Vegas. Yeah, I know. I'm laughing. I know it's insane, right, Seth? It's ridiculous. What would you say to some of these people?
Let me guess. He's so tough. He probably drives one of those massive pickup trucks.
He probably does.
For something else, right? No, I mean,
you're probably right. Yeah, I mean,
what are these idiots trying to prove?
I agree. I mean, what do you say to these people? I mean, you have the president of the United States who now just finally said he's okay with masks, when a week or two ago he was mocking Joe Biden for doing the exact same thing, wearing a mask. I mean, do you think they're just looking at the leader, the president, and following his cue? What do you say to these people?
If the president of the United States needs to prove he's a man by not wearing a mask, he's got much bigger problems. Much bigger problems. I mean, this is very simple. A mask helps contain the coronavirus. Okay, the coronavirus kills people, so we should wear masks.
I just don't understand why there are people out there that still refuse to wear one. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Seth, what do you make of what's going on throughout the country right now with coronavirus is up, the uptick? Uh-oh. Did we lose Seth? I think we just lost Seth. That's the shortest interview I've ever done with a congressman, by the way. Shortest interview I've ever done.
I was listening to it. I didn't hear you say anything particularly offensive.
I don't think I said anything wrong. I think Nancy Pelosi was just knocking on his door. I think that's probably what happened. Nancy and Chuck Schumer were just knocking on his door. They're more important than I am. Sorry, Brian. Gotta go.
A kente-clothed Nancy Pelosi begging for a moment with him. Yes, I'm sure that's it.
Maybe it was Donald Trump. Maybe it was Donald Trump that was knocking on his door. Stop saying negative things about me on the Vegas take.
He may have
Seth.
cut the phone lines.
Maybe he did that. I don't know.
People.
Maybe they didn't pay the bill. Maybe Congress didn't pay their phone bills. You think that's possible? Possible?
It's possible. I mean, I've heard of companies not paying their phone bills.
That definitely happens. That definitely happens from time to time. There's no question about that. Well, we'll work hard to try to get Congressman Seth Moulton back on the line. But, he makes a valid point there, and it's absolute logic, right? Masks are saving lives. They help contain the virus. Why is that so hard for people to not understand? It makes absolutely, positively no sense to me. It just doesn't make any sense. I believe we have the Congressman Seth Moulton back on the line. Seth, I know we got you back now.
Hey,
I was
sorry
in the middle.
About that.
No, it's
quite.
Happened, we thought Nancy Pelosi was knocking on your door or something. That's more important. So, but my next question was this: what do you make of what's going on with the uptick throughout the country? I mean, right here in Las Vegas and in the state of Nevada, as you know, we have a huge issue with the Strip reopening. What do you make of all this? What do you think of the reasons, and what do you think of many on the right that are saying, well, it's just because of more testing and more contact tracing? What would you say?
No, I'm sorry. Like that, these statistics, okay? They can account for that. They can account for how much of the numbers is just due to more testing. They can actually look at what percentage of the population is getting sick, and they know that the numbers are going up. So this isn't complicated. People are going around. They're not wearing masks. They're not being careful. And the point that I was trying to make earlier when I got cut off is that wearing a mask isn't about being tough yourself. It's not about being afraid or not afraid that you're going to get the virus. It's about preventing you from spreading it to other people. In fact, wearing a mask doesn't even protect you very much. It just protects people around you if you happen to have it and you don't know it.
Exactly.
So, I mean, actually, the irony is that if your immune system is really, really tough, then you're more likely to be one of these people who has it and doesn't even know, because you might be carrying it but not be affected yourself because your body is fighting it off, but you can still spread it to other people. So it's a selfless thing to do to wear a mask. And people aren't doing that because they got a terrible example from this president.
Agree. I couldn't agree with you more. I look at it as drunk driving. You're not just putting yourself at risk, you're putting others at risk as well. I want to talk a little bit, obviously, what better person to talk about the issue of what's taken place with Russia and apparently, putting a bounty on U.S. troops. I want to talk to you about that. You're someone that was deployed in Iraq, And you've talked about this on the show, Seth, before, where you didn't necessarily agree with George W. Bush's politics. You didn't even agree with the war, but you still did it in knowing that you didn't feel like George W. Bush was not going to have your back. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Can you talk a little bit about that, your experience back then, and now what Donald Trump is doing today?
No, that's right. That's what I said. I didn't agree with his war. I didn't vote for him twice. But I never even imagined that George W. Bush would have intelligence that could save my life or save the lives of the Marines I was serving with, and would sit on it in the Oval Office because he didn't want to get it to get out because it hurt his politics, or because he was just too damn lazy to read the brief. I mean, it is absolutely absurd. It's disgusting, and it is a complete dereliction of duty by this commander-in-chief. And let me be clear. If I, as the most junior officer in the military, a second lieutenant in the Marine Corps, the most junior officer, if I didn't bother to read an intelligence report that I was given that said my platoon would get ambushed, and then I led my Marines into an ambush, I wouldn't be defending myself on Twitter. I would be in prison, because that's what command responsibility means for the most junior officer in the U.S. military. But Trump right now, and frankly, anyone who's defending this complete dereliction of duty, thinks that standard, that law, that basic expectation doesn't apply to the commander-in-chief, the highest-ranking officer in the land. Mm-hmm.
Congressman,
it's disgusting.
I agree with you. Congressman, you obviously have a little more knowledge when it comes to what took place here than the average American citizen. Can you shed some light into what you believe, what you've heard, stuff that you can tell us that you're able to, about what you believe took place and what Russia did?
It sounds like Russia has a program where they pay our enemies, the Taliban, in Afghanistan to take out American troops. It's not that complicated. They say, every American that you kill, there's a certain price on their head. And the president was briefed about this months ago, and he did nothing. He's not confronted Russia. He's not brought it up in a way that confronts the Taliban. In fact, he was negotiating with the Taliban while this was going on. And if you remember, he got a terrible deal. He got almost nothing in return for us withdrawing troops. Now It's way, way worse, because we realize that he was literally dealing in the lives of Americans.
Oh, now you hear the excuses from the White House. Kayleigh went up there yesterday and the day before, saying that not everyone in the intelligence community agrees with this. And the president up top saying that it didn't reach to the level. There are people that think that, it didn't reach to that level. What do you make from the excuses from the president and the press secretary and all the way down, the excuses they have made over the course of the last week?
There's never 100% agreement in the intelligence community. Never, ever. You never get an intelligence report that says everybody on Earth agrees with this. That's not the way intelligence works. It's intelligence. You can't prove it.
Right.
I mean, that's just the most idiotic excuse ever. Okay, we didn't have perfect intelligence that Osama bin Laden was in that compound when a real commander-in-chief, someone who took responsibility for his actions, doesn't try to blame others, President Obama, said, you know what? In fact, they said there was only a 50% chance he was there. That was the estimate, maybe even less. But he said, nope, we're going to take this action. We're going to risk some American lives because it's the right thing we have to do. And by the way, I'll take responsibility if it fails. Obama said that. And they took him out. Intelligence is never perfect. Back to my analogy, when I was a Marine, if I got a report that said we might get ambushed, and I said, oh, well, I can't prove this, so it doesn't matter. We're still going to walk down that ally, and then a bunch of my Marines get killed. You think I get to go back and say, oh, well, there wasn't a complete agreement? That's just absurd. Anyone who knows anything about how this works knows that that's just complete BS.
Seth, hey, it's Jason. I produced the show. I'm in for JD this day.
Oh,
but
okay.
how you doing? Thanks for coming back on. Real quick, Russia possibly paying the Taliban to kill our troops. Why? Why would Russia want to do that? Is it just simply a matter of they're our enemy, or is there something else?
Well, I think that's a great question, because there are probably a bunch of reasons. Number one, yes, they're our enemy. Putin tries to kill Americans, okay? He's got He's got literally thousands of nuclear weapons pointed at America as we speak, okay? So this guy who spent his life in the KGB doesn't mind killing Americans. He'll take every opportunity he gets to do that. But I think they probably also just want us out of that part of the world because we're in a better position in Afghanistan to keep an eye on Russia, to keep pressure on Russia. And so if you remember, this President Trump, he wants to cut and run from Afghanistan. Now, look, I'm not a fan of the longest war in American history. I don't think we should be, I don't think we should have as many troops there as we do right now, for example. But we're not just going to cut and run. We're not just going to retreat because then our enemies, the Taliban and of course the Russians, they win. They don't want us in their backyard. Just like we didn't want the Russians in Cuba. We didn't want them in our backyard. They don't want us in their backyard. But we are there, and it helps put pressure on them.
Sure. And then a follow-up question, because, why do you think it is that President Trump has such a cozy relationship with Russia, and he is reluctant to call them out or do any, take any serious action against them? Or maybe he has, and I just don't know about it.
Well, can I add something to that? And I want to, just what you're talking about, Stein. The White House is now saying they're not planning any immediate response to these intelligence reports. Seth, how is that possible? I mean, I don't understand that. I mean, isn't that a disgrace? You're disgracing the troops by not putting any action into this. Am I wrong in saying that?
I mean, it's absolutely pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. If any of my commanders, if just my company commander, one level above me, had intelligence that some other nation, some group of bad guys was trying to kill my Marines, and he just said, I'm not really going to do anything about it. Yeah, don't worry, Moulton. You just go take your Marines out again, and you might get shot, you might get blown up, might get ambushed, but I'm not really going to do anything about it. Not going to confront them. Nothing. Not even try. In fact, I'm going to go start calling it a hoax.
Yeah,
that's
what he did.
I'm going to go start calling it a hoax because I care more about my political future than the lives I'm responsible for as the commander-in-chief. That is what Trump is saying.
Yeah, and he called it a hoax. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with former Democratic presidential candidate, Massachusetts Congressman Seth Moulton, also a war hero. Okay, so Congressman,
let me just go through a few of the other excuses that the White House is using right now and how totally absurd they are. Oh, I didn't read the brief? Okay, you're responsible for the brief. It's only 10 pages. You got enough time to tweet all day and watch Fox and Friends, but you can't read the presidential daily brief, the most important intelligence report in the world that's designed and written specifically for you? If you can't do that, you should not be president of the United States because people are dying due to your irresponsibility. So that's an absurd excuse. I mean, that's like saying, I'm sorry, I ran over someone in a crosswalk yesterday, killed them. But it doesn't count because I just wasn't looking right then.
That's true.
I didn't see that person. I wasn't looking at that. I wasn't looking up. I was looking at my radio when I killed this kid in the crosswalk, so I'm not responsible. It doesn't count. That's what the president's saying. And then what about the rest of his team?
That's also a good point. Yeah.
There are a lot of things if I vote on some racist bill, I vote for it. I don't get to go back next week and say, I didn't read the whole text of the bill. I didn't see it. No, that's my responsibility or it's my team's responsibility. So where's Vice President Pence? Where's Defense Secretary Esper? Where's Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State? They get the presidential daily brief as well. None of them took action. And they didn't tell the president to take action? I mean, this is dereliction of duty, not just with the commander-in-chief, but his whole team.
I agree with you.
Administration.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
The New York Times, now they're trying to blame the New York Times. Thank God the New York Times did publish this. Thank God the president reads the New York Times, even though he doesn't read his presidential daily brief.
That's true. And he's meeting with Diamond and Silk, too. We forgot to put that one in there as well. He has time to do that.
Yeah, just throw that in, too. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
look, I get heated about this because this is American lives. It's American kids who volunteered to put their lives on the line for the country, not like this draft dodger who's the commander-in-chief who got 5 deferments so he wouldn't have to go to Vietnam and some other kid could go in his place. No,
we all should be upset.
Heroes who were dying. Okay?
We all should be upset.
And now by the way, we've heard in my office now, we've heard from parents of kids serving right now in the military who are saying, what am I supposed to think? I mean, I know that this is a dangerous job. My son or daughter is out there in the front. I know it's dangerous. I know that he could die. But now our own commander-in-chief isn't going to keep my son safe, my daughter
Congressman,
safe.
what do you say, Congressman? Because we have a Gold Star mom that's coming up next after you. What do you say to one of those parents that talks to you and says something like that? How do you respond to them?
It's hard because there's no excuse for this. There's no explanation. I mean, I tell them that I'm going to do everything I possibly can. But, I'm not the commander-in-chief. I don't have that command responsibility. I'm on the Armed Services Committee, so we work really hard to hold the Defense Department accountable, to get people in, to hold their feet to the fire and make sure they're doing the right thing. But at the end of the day, there's a certain amount of responsibility that we give through our political system to the president. And if he doesn't take that seriously, if he just doesn't care about the lives of American troops, then there's not much you can say to these parents. There really isn't. I'm not going to bullshit them. There's not much you can say.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Now, I want to talk to you about that because
just one last point. That's different than saying that's so different than if this was like 10 years ago or whatever, or 15 years ago, and I said, I don't agree with this war that Bush has got going, but I do know that he's doing the best job he can with his team.
Right.
I don't agree with him, but he's doing what he can. That's very different. But you can't.
Very different. Right. You can't say that about Trump. Yeah, and you would know best. You're absolutely right. I want to ask you about this because there are rumors, and that's all it is. It's a rumor. I don't know if this is true or not, that there are people in the intelligence community that were afraid to give – they claim – this is what I've heard. I don't know if this is true or not. I don't know if you've heard this rumor. They were afraid to give the president this information in fear that he would have shared it with Vladimir Putin. Do you think there's any truth to that rumor?
Sadly, I do, because how else do you explain this? I mean, I have some friends who've worked in the White House, not because they're political appointees of Trump, loyalists or something like that, but just because they're military officers or they're folks who worked in the intelligence community, and they're just they're the people who just keep the wheels of government running. They worked in the Obama administration and they worked in the Trump administration, and they've told me that it is just strange, Seth. They said it is strange. He'll have calls with 10 world leaders, and he's always a little nuts. That's who this guy is. But then all of a sudden he gets on the phone with Putin, and he's like a pussycat. He does whatever he says. And you got to ask why. What the heck is going on, right?
Yeah.
Because this is a guy who claims he's like Mr. Tough Guy conservative, right? Okay, conservatives, Republicans, they don't like Russians, don't like communism, don't like any of that stuff. So there's no political benefit to being soft on Russia. I mean, Trump could keep being the most extreme, radical, racist, whatever, far-right president, alt-right president, and be tough on Russia, and everyone would be happier with him, because it's not like the alt-right has as one of their platform, planks, we're going to be really soft on Russia. Republicans were the ones who led the McCarthy hearings back in the 1950s, railing on Russians.
Yeah.
So there's something going on here, and I don't know what it is. I don't have 100% intelligence, as Trump would say, but there's something going on here. There's just no other explanation for it.
Congressman Beal?
Even though we don't know what that is, we know that he cares more about his relationship with Putin than he does the lives of American troops. That's patently clear.
Congressman, we only have a few minutes left to go here. I would imagine that you've spoken to people across the aisle. I know Lindsey Graham came forward and said there needs to be a full investigation. Not to say that Lindsey Graham is the most.
Encourage that guy.
Yeah, I know. I know, Seth. I was just about to say not that he's the most credible person on the planet, but I mean, have you spoken to? I would imagine you have Republicans on the other side of the aisle, and have they shown you concern that you and I show?
Yes. They're concerned. Some of them are appalled. I mean, I've had people reach out to me just in the last couple of days who have been Trump supporters full and through. And, this is what's finally changed their minds. I mean, I want to ask them, are you serious? Like, it took this? But this is this is just a total new low. I mean, it seems like every week there's a new low for this administration, but to play with lives of American troops like this, I mean, it is completely illegal against our Constitution and everything else to ask a foreign power to get you reelected. Okay, that's what Trump did earlier. That's what the whole impeachment proceeding was about. And although he wasn't convicted, the charge was proven that he did that. Okay, and that's against the Constitution and everything else. But we don't know if any troops died because of that. That's just illegal. But there are American kids who are dead right now. There are American kids who are dead because this president refused to take action. I mean, he owes a phone call. I'll tell you what, he owes a phone call to those parents.
Absolutely.
And not a pass-the-buck phone call, like, oh, it's not my fault because I didn't read the brief.
Right, of course.
But a phone call that actually says, yeah, your son would be alive today if I had done my job.
Yeah, but he won't do that because I think he lacks empathy. I think we both can agree on that. Seth, listen, I've said this a gazillion times, and I'll say it again. You're a hero. Keep up the fight, my friend. I believe one day you will be the president of the United States. I truly believe that.
I'm not a hero, but I am going to keep fighting. I'll tell you that.
Oh, I know you will.
Because our troops deserve it.
I know you will. And you're a great representative and a spokesperson for all those brave men and women out there because you were one of those. So, Congressman, I always appreciate it during your busy schedule when you take the time to come on our show. Look forward to speaking with you again. Regards to you and your family. Stay safe during this coronavirus. And like I said, I have no doubt you're going to keep up the fight, Seth. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, no, you're very welcome, and please give my best to the Gold Star family I have on next and mother.
I will. I will do that, Congressman. Thank you so much again.
For her and her family and sacrifice.
I will pass that along. That's the first thing I will say. Thank you, Congressman.